Since ancient times, trees have featured prominently in the folklore of the British Isles, most notably the oak tree. Known for their longevity, these ancient kings of the forest were worshipped by druids in pre-Christian times. In fact, the term druid possibly derives from the Celtic word for oak, or knower of the oak. So join me as I journey across Lincolnshire and East Anglia in search of some of the best known oak trees in Britain. I'm in Manthorpe near Bourne in the South Kesteven district of Lincolnshire, and I'm here to see the remarkable Bothorpe Oak, which is said to be the oldest oak tree in England. Let's have a closer look. Now, it's not known for sure just how old the tree is, but it's reputed to be well over 1,000 years old. Its branches are bound with chains to prevent it splitting under the weight of its boughs. Now, there are 3 chains on the tree. The first chain was put there over 100 years ago, the second in the 1970s, and a third was put there in the 1990s. Now, I can't see the chains through the foliage, but apparently one of the branches was ripped off during a severe storm in 2002. Its circumference measures 42 feet and its trunk is hollow. Now, the first reference to the Bothorpe Oak appeared in a selection of views in the county of Lincolnshire, first printed in 1801. Author Bartholomew Howlett wrote that in 1768 George Pauncefort, Esquire, had the interior of the oak floored, with benches placed around and a door of entrance, where 12 persons had frequently dined in it with ease. Also, on Friday the 28th of July 1871, a Methodist church service was held, and it was said that 39 people were crowded into the oak, and 13 could sit down and have tea comfortably inside it. Now, as I have mentioned, the oak is estimated to be at least 1,000 years old, so it could possibly have been around during the time of William the Conqueror. Now, due to its longevity, the Bothorpe Oak has earned a place in the Guinness Book of Records, and it was named one of the 50 Great British Trees by the Tree Council in celebration of the Queen's Golden Jubilee in 2002. As you can see, it's been fenced off for protection, and government funding ensures that this magnificent old tree will be given expert care. So who knows? It could still be around in another 1,000 years. I'm in Huntingfield in the county of Suffolk on the former Huntingfield estate, and that small lonely looking tree on the right is known as the Queen's Oak. Let's get a closer look and I'll tell you more about it. Now, it's called the Queen's Oak because it is said that when visiting Huntingfield Hall, Queen Elizabeth I shot a deer from the shelter of the oak tree. Now, Elizabeth was queen from 1558 to 1603. This makes the tree over 500 years old, but it is said that the tree was old even then. So, like the Bothorpe Oak in Lincolnshire, it might be at least 1,000 years old. But is there any truth to the story. It's documented that in 1578 Queen Elizabeth visited Melford Hall in Sudbury, some 50 miles from here, but there is no evidence that she ever visited Huntingfield. The original manor house, demolished in 1752, that stood on the site of the present hall, would not have accommodated the Queen and her army of servants and courtiers. It is likely, however, that Elizabeth has been confused with her sister Mary I, or Bloody Mary as she was known. Her husband held the manors of Wingfield and Huntingfield, and she was known to enjoy riding and hunting. The oak itself is said to be a unique species found in Suffolk and the south-east of the country, genetically different to trees found elsewhere in Britain. I'm at Roos Hall near Beccles in Suffolk, which is said to be one of the most haunted houses in England. And it has an interesting old tree. Now, unfortunately, it's on private property, so this is the closest I can get to it. Legend has it that a gibbet once stood in the grounds of the hall where many people were hanged. Now, when the gibbet was taken down, this oak was planted in its place, and it's said to be a very haunted location. For example, the ghost of a lady in white can be seen on certain occasions dancing around the tree in an attempt to summon the devil. Now, Roos Hall is a Tudor manor house that dates to around 1593, and as I mentioned, it is reputed to be one of the most haunted houses in England, but sadly it's not open to the public. However, if you hang around the entrance to the driveway on December the 24th, then you might see the Headless Horseman driving his carriage down this long driveway leading to the hall, pulled by two headless horses. In Furze Hill Wood, in the village of Mistley in north-east Essex, stands a gnarled, twisted oak, known affectionately as Old Nobly. Standing more than 13 feet tall and 38 feet wide, this 800-year-old oak has been ravaged by fire, struck by lightning, and at one time housed a hornet's nest in its twisted boughs. According to local folklore, the ancient oak was once a hiding place for hunted witches fleeing from the infamous Matthew Hopkins, better known as the Witchfinder General. Hopkins lived in nearby Manningtree and was the landlord of the Thorn Inn in Mistley, where he tortured the first of many of his unfortunate victims. He is believed to have been responsible for the executions of over 100 alleged witches between the years 1644 and 1646, and according to local legend, the ghost of the evil Matthew Hopkins is said to appear dressed in full 17th century costume at full moon near the village pond in the shadow of the ancient oak. I'm back in Lincolnshire, where I started my journey, and I'm heading to a crossroads on Miles Cross Hill near the market town of Alford. Now, the next story is unusual because the tree I'm going to show you is no longer there, and it wasn't even an oak tree. However, it's an interesting, little known local folk tale. Now, in superstitious times, victims of suicides were believed to return as evil spirits, so it was customary to bury them at the crossroads in the belief that their spirits would be trapped there. This was in keeping with the superstition that wherever there is a 4-lane end or a place where 2 roads cross each other, a ghost is to be seen. So it's not surprising that in folklore, a crossroads is considered a meeting place between the living and the dead. A place to be avoided, unless of course you intend to sell your soul to the devil. And according to local folklore, back in the 1880s, the Alford poet W.J. Bateman did just that. Now, before I continue, I would like to thank my fellow YouTuber, the Bow-Legged Runner, for drawing my attention to this story. Go and check him out, and I guarantee he will make you feel really unfit. Now, William Bateman was a poet from the market town of Alford, which is about a mile down the hill, and in 1882 he published a series of prose and poetical pieces entitled The Harpings of Lena, co-authored with Edward Lenton, another young poet who died at the age of 16. Now, evidently Bateman didn't profit from his work, as he was a pauper and he lived on charity. However, it is said that one night he made his way to a hawthorn tree that used to stand here at the crossroads, where he met the devil and he sold his soul. This is a photo of the devil's hawthorn tree here at the crossroads on Miles Cross Hill. It's from an unspecified book or magazine, and the date of the photo is unknown. But unfortunately, the tree is no longer here. Judging by the old photo, the devil's tree used to stand near this gap in the hedge. Now, William Bateman, or Old Bill as he was known locally, was described as being a thin man with a keen, intelligent face. He was lame and he got about on a single crutch. Now, at the time it was said that the town of Alford was populated by poachers and smugglers, and because of his dealings with the devil here at the crossroads, Bateman was shunned and feared by the locals. However, he must have made a terrible bargain with the devil, because when he ran out of money, he was forced to go to the local workhouse. In fact, many of his pieces are dated Alford Workhouse. In the preface to a second book which he published, Poetics and Prosaics, in 1835, he pathetically alludes to the affliction with the sick and the dying around him. Unlike his friend Alfred Lord Tennyson, who lived in Somersby, not far from here, Bateman died in poverty and obscurity. So it's somewhat ironic that first edition copies of his book Poetics and Prosaics, printed in 1835, sell for nearly £3,000. That's the equivalent of well over £400,000 in 1835. Now, long after his death, the hawthorn that used to stand here was known to generations of locals as Bill Bateman's bush. And it's a real shame that a part of local history has now long gone. Well, that's just about it for this video. As usual, if you've made it this far, then thank you very much for joining me, and I do hope you'll join me again next time.